Hello, this is Mrs. Mendy, and I'm going to show you how to write your results for your science fair project. Okay, so here's what you need to have in your results. So you're going to state the main trend of your graph, and I'm going to show you how to do that in a minute. You're going to talk about at least two specific data points or trends in the data, like if it's not a simple trend like a line. Um, you might want to talk about other things and other like curves and stuff in the line. And there are no conclusions or mentions of your hypothesis, nothing like that. The results is just what you saw, no conclusions about any of it. Okay, so here's an example of a results section that would be okay. Strawberry gum made the biggest bubbles. Mint gum made the smallest bubbles. Strawberry gum blew bubbles with an average diameter of 13 centimeters. Mint gum only had an average bubble size of 5 centimeters. Okay, so that's got the main trend that strawberry gum made the biggest bubbles and that mint gum made the smallest bubbles. So that's like the general trend. You could have more than this, like if there were other unusual things in there, you would say those too. Now for your graph, how to tell the main trend. This is a bar graph or a column graph, and things that you will say about the graph. And I've put these in sort of like general terms of what you would say, so you have to know what these things are, these colored boxes. So you have to know your independent variable, your dependent variable, and your different categories, okay? So you could say the independent variable did or had or did not have an effect on the dependent variable. And you wouldn't say independent variable and dependent variable. You'd say like the actual things. Then you'd say this category had the largest dependent variable, whatever it is. And this other category had the smallest, whatever this is. Okay, so here's the general form that you could use. Here's the actual one. Let me hide this in there. Oh, I can't on this one. Why? All right. So gum flavor had an effect on bubble diameter. So that's the independent variable, and I've color coded these. Had an effect on the bubble diameter. So that's the dependent variable, the yellow. And you can tell that because the gum flavor is your x-axis. That's your independent variable, should be there. And the bubble diameter, that's your dependent variable, and that should be on the y-axis. Cinnamon flavored gum had the biggest bubble diameter at 6 inches. So here's your actual example of data. And here's your category. That's the biggest because there it is, and it's the biggest. You have to look at your graph to see what is true. The bubblegum flavored gum had the smallest bubble diameter. So here it is here, and it does have the smallest diameter at 3.5. Oh, yeah, no, that's probably 2.5. Sorry about that. That's an error in my slide. I will fix that when I'm done with this video. It had the smallest bubble diameter, or so at whatever it is. Okay. And then you could also say what the other ones are, but I didn't want to take up too much time doing that. So you could say what your other trends are too, or your other variables were too. Like, what about spearmint gum? What about mint gum? Okay, if you had something that was like a scatter plot, like this graph, you're going to talk about the trend differently because it's one variable affecting the other variable throughout the whole range, okay? So in here, I've got, and this is actually true from up through yesterday, of Indiana COVID-19 new daily cases, okay? So here's the things that would be a little bit different. You're still going to say your independent variable did or did not have an effect on a dependent variable. And how you would know is if the line goes up or it goes down, or, if you have dots, if the dots kind of tend to go up or if they tend to go down, that means there was an effect. If they just if it makes a line that is sort of flat, or the dots go in sort of like no particular order, that means it did not have an effect on the dependent variable. Okay, and as independent variable increased, then did the dependent variable increase or decrease? So yeah. And then you put examples of data, the actual numbers, including a difference from the main trend. Okay, so for this particular graph, here's what you could say. Calendar date, because that's what's down here. Calendar date had an effect on new COVID cases, because this is new COVID cases here. And you can see because this line kind of zigzags, but it goes up. So then you'd say as calendar date increased, so as you go on in time, new COVID cases increased because they're going up. It's increased. It's a positive kind of trend of line. And then examples of data including differences would be like, it's not a straight line, right? So I would say there was a dip in new COVID cases, like below what was happening in early July and early October a little bit. But by the end of October, there were 3,163 new cases daily. So you kind of just say some examples of data. Okay, it doesn't super make sense to say like, oh, before this time it was 0, because that's not very interesting. But to say like, this is what it is now, you might want to say like, oh, it dropped to this level or it dropped to this level here, anything like that, that you think is important that you'd want to talk about. Okay, and your data is not going to be this complex, right? Because this is hundreds of thousands of data points. Okay, and you need to have minimum of 10, and you may have as many as 50 or 60. There are some people who have that. Okay, so that's how to tell the main trend of your data in bar graphs and in scatter plots. So I hope this helps. Get writing.